is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 276. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him... Sitting here on a Sunday, beautiful Austin, Texas, hour 4 of content for you and I here this week, man. So long time no see, I guess. How you feeling?
I'm all right, man. Watching all my fantasy leagues, all my hard work go up in flames all year long, being invested more than anyone and just watching it crumble. So that's got me in a great mood for sure. Yeah, like you said, man, it's been a long week for you and I here. Lot to talk about. You know, we did chat about a lot, and some exciting stuff and some really disappointing, well, not disappointing, some sad stuff with the Buca news and all that. But
you're too attached, D.
Hey, come on, he's one of the fair players. Why wouldn't I be?
Don't be a fan. Don't be a fan.
So you know, it's we got to press on. You know, we got to keep going here. There's still work to be done with this roster. Still got to move forward with all this. So happy to be here. Happy to talk to the sickos.
Yeah, I mean, what a week, right? Like, we'll get into all of it. We'll recap everything that we talked about on the live streams. Then there is additional news that we didn't get to cover on the 3 live streams we hit this week. So before we cover the busy week that was, just want to remind you all listening or watching on the YouTube channel that you can support the show financially by downloading the audio versions of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And that goes for the live streams. They get reposted on the audio feed. Even if you tuned in live, make sure you download the audio versions of the streams as well. Look, you can toggle on auto downloads. That'll support the show going forward. You won't have to think about it again. So on Apple, Spotify, you hit that toggle on for auto downloads. If you want to go the extra mile, you can rate and review the show wherever you get those pods. And if you are watching on the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button because that does help us grow the show. If it didn't, we would not ask you every week. So you can also hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, here on episode 276, hit the thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords, atone for your sins, wash yourselves clean in the waters of the North End. So again, just one more reminder, right? If we're just going to touch on these topics very briefly here, this might end up, and I guess I'll knock on some wood here, like this might end up being the shortest ever weekly episode we've had, just because we covered everything so extensively throughout the week. But all of the longer conversations on these topics are available on those live stream replays. So you can catch those, of course, on the YouTube. Those were also put into your audio podcast feed from Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So it was about an hour after we posted episode 275 last Sunday that Nico Moreno from up there in Seattle did confirm that Austin FC had come to an agreement with John Bell, and it was Austin FC officially announcing that move on Tuesday morning, and that's when we went live for the stream. Now, later in the week, and this is something that I wanted to highlight here, our friends over at We Are Austin TV, right? Hernan on the Top Flight podcast had Nico Moreno on Top Flight on Thursday. And the most important thing that I took away from that is that Moreno said his salary expectation for Bell was right around $300K or maybe a little north of that number, which of course would make him senior roster for good. You cannot buy down that salary charge to a supplemental roster slot. So again, that is not 100% fact, right? He didn't report that was the number, but that was what he suggested. So I'm going to lean with the guy that has the into John Bell's camp coming from the Sounders organization. But I've got my fingers crossed under the table that it's still going to come in around 226, which again would be a significant hefty pay raise for a guy like John Bell.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and trust that source as well. And we'll see what that looks like once we get the salary cap Christmas later on. And, you know, that's going to be a big criteria for how you and I are going to grade this get. And like the John Bell thing, it seems like it was a month ago at this point, which is hilarious because he has been the most lost in the sauce that he has been dealing with this entire week here. But again, I'm excited about the player for sure. And I do want to see what that figure looks like. But I'm excited to welcome John Bell here to Austin and get him into the rotation and see what it looks like.
Yeah. When it was, of course, during the John Bell live stream that the Osman Bukhari rumor got reposted by We Are Austin TV. And so we reacted to that live, of course, and that turned the entire week on its head. But anything else for you on John Bell right now, though?
No.
So, of course, that again, that threw us all into a little bit of a tizzy here with the very strong rumor coming from the Polish side of things. And then, of course, we talked about on the live streams that Verde Nation had found another interview with the reporter who put out that rumor first, or that report rather, and that gave us some further insight into why that rumor and ultimately Buka, why he was ultimately moved on. But not before we got his potential replacement on Thursday. Austin traded for Jaden Nelson, right? Canadian international winger from the Vancouver Whitecaps. And of course, again, we did a long green smoke stream about that. And I got to take my victory lap prognosticating about a Jaden Nelson trade or potential trade offer there. So that made me look pretty good. Man, the more I look at things, now about 72 hours after that trade was finalized by the team, right? Nelson played mostly on the left wing for the Whitecaps last year. He can play on both wings. But I think he may even line up centrally here for Austin. And no matter what, is going to have the ability to cut inside if he is aligned, in your formation on paper, out there, out wide. Like, he can get into the middle of the park and create a little bit. So again, it's not as disappointed as I am that, a player like Bukhari, who you and I both really enjoyed watching, very, disappointed that he's gone. We replaced him with another guy who profiles very similarly, 4 years younger, right? So I have replaced some of that disappointment or sadness for losing one of our favorite players with the excitement of a new guy who is probably going to be just as electric for us at Q2.
Yeah. Once the dust kind of settled with the Buka stuff and it became, inevitable that we were going to be moving on from him, obviously it set in because like you mentioned, and as we mentioned at the top, he's one of our favorite players. I loved watching him play. It was really fun. He was electric every time he was on the ball. And we were a completely different team when he was available and out there. And I'm definitely still disappointed about it. But this Jaden Nelson get is a really good get. And like you mentioned, they profile very similar. It's not like Buka had, eye-popping numbers that you're just not going to potentially able to replace. You can get that production. Is it going to be something that looks similar? And I think obviously with our struggles to finish, Buka's numbers were a bit deflated of what they could have been. And part of that's on him because I do think there was plenty of opportunities where he should have been better with his finishing. And,
sure,
we had a couple, folks chatting about, his decision-making and things along those lines. And we were talking about it after, I think, when some of our emotions weren't as raw. And, I mentioned that there was a lot of times this year where we as a collective team knew that we were struggling mightily to score. And you could see the dudes pressing to try to score and not make the right play. And that goes for Buka, that goes for Hot Air, that goes for Mirtu. Plenty of times we were like, hey, dump that off. There's a guy running wide open on the far post. Let's score here. But instead you saw dudes pressing, trying to do it on their own. And Buka fell victim to that as well. So I'm super excited about Jaden Nelson, man. And as you mentioned, he can move around a little bit. And I'd like to see where he's going to be lined up. I don't have any guarantees right now, but I do think that he's a starter. I think he's going to be a night in, night out starter, a consistent starter for this team.
Yeah, you and I are certainly in lockstep there. And it was right the next day, a Friday morning, is where we get the official news from the club that they have indeed transferred Osman Bukhari to Poland. And Tom Bogert, right, gave us the heads up that was coming officially early Friday morning. So we did that farewell stream. And we talked a lot more about the increasing likelihood of the 2-4 GAM build. Well, one thing I was also thinking about over the weekend here, E, was that can you imagine if the original Polish reporter, I'm not going to give my -3 out of 10 pronunciation attempt here again, but can you imagine if he had stayed with the strict secrecy that he was instructed to from multiple sides, and we don't hear about Osman until Friday morning when Bogert gets his hands on it? Dude, if we brought in Jaden Nelson, we would have been going ballistic.
Yeah.
We got Buka on one side. Now we got another Buka on the left. So I am very, very glad that we did not have that false start pulled. That rug pulled, I guess, is a better way to say it. So the timing, point. I think, worked out for our emotions a little bit better. But anything else for you on Jaden Nelson, on Osman for now?
I mean, just to summarize, very excited for Jaden Nelson. Really love the get. And for Buka, wish him the best. Hope he does really well over there, and appreciate his time here in Austin.
Yeah, I know. I mean, in case there's any other Polish folks wandering in here, because plenty of them did into the live stream the other day, I think we can reiterate that from our point of view, you guys are getting a player that's going to be very, very exciting, and certainly wish him better with those counting stats there in his new home. So, I also said on the Buka farewell stream, E, that the next move that I think we should expect, if it's going to take place, was one of those 2 contract buyouts that we have for the 2026 season. Because, I'm sitting here thinking that it would be best for all parties involved that if we are going to use a buyout on one of the senior roster players that is currently under contract for the team, that we should do that before we get to training camp here in about 2.5-3 weeks, both to free that spot and that cap space up for us on the Austin FC side, and to allow whatever potential player would be getting bought out of their deal, allow them the time to find their next landing spot before the season, or going maybe abroad to join a different team in a different country in the middle of their season. But no, of course not. So 2-3 hours after we end the stream, and in between this news and us ending that stream, I did go as a guest, my second guest appearance on Verde All Day's emergency podcast right there with our buddy Phil West, which after this episode, make sure you go listen to that episode. You support our buddy Phil over there at Verde All Day. But goddamn, dude, even after we finished that episode, we're like, can we we probably have a breather here this weekend? Nope. I'm walking into a holiday dinner on Friday night, literally 2 minutes before I got into a restaurant where I did not have service at the table I was at, which was key for, and maybe also was driving me a little bit crazy, not able to see any sort of updates after I saw that news walking into the restaurant. But the report is from Tom Bogert. And I also think the Pioneer Press up there in Minneapolis, St. Paul, is also reporting this, that Austin FC is on the verge of completing a trade for Joseph Rosales there from Minnesota United. And the initial report was $1.5 million in GAM, but then Tom Bogert followed up by suggesting this may be a cash for or a cash for player trade, which of course was a rule that was implemented prior to last season here in MLS. So nothing is official yet. Of course, if that is announced early this week, and it may be announced before you even listen to this episode. So if it is, of course, we will be firing up a Green Smoke live stream if a Joseph Rosales trade does take place. But Joseph Rosales is a player that we certainly have plenty of in person and watching on Apple TV. We have a nice little scout on Joseph Rosales, and this is a very good MLS player. And again, young, I think 25 years old. So that's another factor I think you see in some of these acquisitions we have made at the beginning of this offseason. John Bell, who just turned 28, is the elder statesman of the 4 players we've added between he and Jaden Nelson and Irvin Torres, right? And now potentially Joseph Rosales. And I will also note that 3 of those guys primarily play on the left. So it was not just the fans saying we don't have shit on that left side. Clearly, the front office thought so as well. But nothing official yet, so we don't have to deep dive this too much. But Joseph Rosales, 25 years old, mostly played left back last season for Minnesota, but can also play in the midfield and centrally in the midfield, right? So again, I think kind of like Jaden Nelson, if this does get done, we're going to have to wait and see until the preseason where exactly some of these new acquisitions are lining up, because they are positionally flexible. And having that positional flexibility is something that we probably don't have enough of, or did not have enough of, on the 2025 Austin FC roster.
Absolutely. I was going to say his versatility to move around the pitch is very underrated, because he is a good player. And like you said, we got to see him up close and personal several times. Physical player for sure, but he's talented, man. And poor Minnesota, they are not having a good offseason. If you want to talk about a team that's having a rough offseason, good Lord. I'm excited about this too, this potentially coming through here. And like we said, we talked about potentially some schematic changes, some formational changes with this team. And with these new guys coming in here and their versatility and stuff like that, we're going to have to see what it looks like, because I don't know if this makes me more confident or less confident that we're going 5 back here, because he can play, excuse me, some wing back as well. But like, obviously, we have Biru back there. You add Nelson, which we think might be on the left as well. But as you mentioned, with him being able to play centrally, I think that is important. So we're adding talent, and we're getting more depth for sure.
Yeah, dude. I mean, at worst, these are floor-raising type of additions that we have made, proven at the MLS level, right? For their various, roster designations and budget hits or cap hits and the like. I also think, right, you mentioned Minnesota not having a good week. It kind of seems like the fact that, and I've heard this about their front office for a number of years now, right, is that they are, of course, budget conscious. That's why they have built such a strong contender over the last few years here in the Western Conference, right, with not a ton of like flashy acquisitions. Timu Pukki was a name, but that didn't go great, right? And they're certainly not afraid to sell somebody on in the middle of the season, because that's how you build up your GAM coffers and you build a team that can sustain playoff appearances year in and year out. But, right, like, apparently the Dane St. Clair negotiations with Minnesota went sideways because they lowballed him at first. And then reportedly, once that 7-figure offer came for the goalkeeper of the year, he was already just like, nah wave on that. Like, I'm just going to go to Miami and try to win. Apparently with Rosales, dude, like 18 months ago, they turned down like a $2.5 or $3 million offer from Europe. Last year, apparently they turned down, I think it was Tigres. We'll have all this straight for sure on the potential Green Smoke live stream, but it seems like maybe they are getting less than they were offered multiple times in the last 18 months for a player like Rosales, which was interesting to me, man. And I think, like, kind of playing into your point, right? I know we were like kind of half joking there, but they may be screwing themselves, like trying to pinch pennies here or there, or trying to wait and see if they can increase the value of a player like Rosales, because he lost time to Markinich down there, or Markinick, right, down there last year at the fullback position. So very interesting rumor or report, I guess we should say at this point, coming from both Bogert and the Pioneer Press. So I'm expecting Monday morning Green Smoke.
I'm expecting it as well. And I think, seeing the interest from other teams, particularly Tigres, European clubs as well, really points to the fact that this is another good, high-quality player at the MLS level that has me excited about it for sure. Might not be the best dude, but...
Sure, so I think we can... let's discuss that on the Green Smoke live stream, because I have certainly been reading some comments from the Minnesota fans about that. There was allegations, for those unaware, allegations made by, I forget the player, again, we'll have this all straight on the live stream, but of like a racist comment from Rosales last year. He continues to deny that he ever made that comment. So again, we'll have to see about that. But the 2 points I wanted to bring up before we move on is that some have suggested, and I think I don't disagree fully, that this could mean one of Jean Kolmanich or Guilherme Biru is on the move. But again, I want to go back to the noting that Rosales can play in the midfield. And of course, again, like playing centrally in the, like he leans to the defensive half of the field. But I don't think it's a lock button that this means we're moving on from one of
Mm-hmm.
those, left-sided guys on the back line. But what it is further evidence of is that we're moving to that 2-4 GAM build. Like that is almost all but locked in at present.
Yep.
So we can keep it moving. Another thing that happened during that Jaden Nelson trade stream, right? We were live during the MLS Superdraft, which I will say, the speed of that Superdraft,
Crazy.
I think they draft before the actual draft, dude. I think those picks are made already. There's no way it moves that fast. There is no way it gets done in less than 2 hours. 90 fucking picks. It averaged like a minute 15 or a minute 20 per pick. That's just not how these things work.
Yeah.
So, and I know it's not a 1-to-1 to the other, like the NFL draft or the NBA draft and the like, but like, dude, even that's faster than most fantasy football drafts go. And sometimes you're playing for free in those, So like, I do question that. Not that it means anything here. I just wanted to raise the point. So we touched on our first selection in this year's draft, which was second round, 47th overall. Austin FC selected Stefan. I'm going to keep going Dobrahevich until I'm corrected by the club or the player. Dobrahevich out of the University of Akron, right? And we talked about, or rather, we took a look at his scouting dashboard here, and I have to go, I refreshed this page, so I have to go back and find him for the YouTube viewers here. But Dobrahevich, I mentioned on the stream, that I thought that the kind of elite batch of players had a roll score of 80 or above. And so I went and found the actual kind of rubric here. And the roll score on the American Soccer Analysis MLS Draft dashboard here is a weighted calculation of the different statistical factors that you see in the player's scouting report here in the dashboard, with weights determined by a player's best fit role. So like, of course, there are some guys who you can't really pigeonhole into a certain role overall and could find a different home positionally at the MLS level. But this is still right. This is ASA's rough projection of how likely a player is to translate at the next level. And those guys with an 80 plus score are, quote, elite in multiple areas, one of just a handful of top level players. And they had just 6 players in this class, right? This is like, I think 200 plus players in this database that ASA rolled out. So just 6 guys were 80 plus. And our guy Dobrahevich, 78.9, and those guys with a 75 to an 80, their breakdown is exceptional in comparison to peers with either particular elite strengths or broad base of high-level skills, likely to be MLS contributors or high-level, lower-level players. There are 18 of those players in this class, and so you can see the overall rank for Dobrahevich is 18. Roto and Austin FC able to pick him up at 47th overall. And I also went to Paul Harvey is kind of the point person or the main architect of this dashboard, I believe, year in and year out. So Paul Harvey did go through and grade everybody's drafts. Austin FC, A+ from Paul Harvey. And like, look, that is from the guy who built the dashboard. Yes, he's going to like when you get the 18th ranked player at 47. But what Harvey had to say about Austin's draft, and we did our third pick, or our third round pick, rather, it was our second pick, was Patrick Kayeli out of University of Pennsylvania. And that was, we did not get to talk about Patrick on the live stream on Thursday. So what Harvey says about Kayeli is he is a classic playmaker, not the biggest playmaker, but he has a great eye for a line-breaking pass, can play strikers in very well. Kayeli will probably develop a more well-rounded game if he's going to operate in the midfield, but if he's able to split out wide, he could function as a winger as well. And so Kayeli, real quick on him, he was born in South Carolina. He does have both USL League One and League Two experience. He signed an academy deal with the Greenville Triumph, that's USL League One, back in 2021, which allowed him to maintain his NCAA eligibility. And then, as a lot of these college guys do in their off seasons or their summer breaks, he did play for Tampa Bay United in USL League 2 in their 23-24 season. He scored in their openers, one of his 4 goals in his 10 appearances with Tampa Bay, and again, a 4-year player at UPenn. So that's Patrick Kayeli. And again, I think we should have a twinge of excitement here for the potential upside of Dobrahevich, because dude, like, obviously Paul Harvey and the stats from their Y-Scout database are very high on the player from where we got him. And you know that, like, Logan Okwa is a guy that I go lean on for like college tape or, guys that we get internationally, because he's so tapped into that. He also thinks that Dobrahevich could be a guy that maybe does sneak onto the first team roster, which is how I started that conversation, was like, I think, like, unless we've got 3 guys laying around or that are going to come in and fill those supplemental slots, like, I don't think we should be shocked if we see Stefan Dobrahevich earn a supplemental first-team contract this season. He is confirmed to domestic. He was born in Uniontown, Ohio, although Serbian is his first language, and he didn't start learning English till he was 6 there in that Ohio area. So those are the 2 draft picks here for the Super Draft. And of course, that 17th pick, our first round pick, was included in the Jaden Nelson trade to the Whitecaps. So Roto now 3 for 3 on moving his first round picks. Still found a way to get some great value out of that, including it in the trade for Jaden Nelson.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not going to pretend to know a ton about Stefan Dobrahevich here, but I will trust in the scouting ability of, I forget the name of the man that you said put this together.
Paul Harvey. Yeah.
Paul Harvey. So I'll trust in that, and getting the 18th ranked overall player at the 47th pick it's good business in my book. So I'm excited for him. Hopefully he has a good camp. And like you said, you got those supplemental spots lying around. I'm not opposed to using them.
Yeah. We've never filled it. So the player has to go earn it.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
So we may not see him sign at all until a few weeks, maybe even a month plus into camp. But at the very least, both of these players, you would assume, would, as a floor, have Austin FC2 contracts. But it's not a lock that a guy like Kayeli ends up here, right? Maybe he gets a USL offer and ends up going there. But Austin FC gets the rights to both Dobrahevich and Kayeli here. And you can see Kayeli in the draft dashboard here. That roll scored down to a 73.2 and an overall rank of 105. So if you're just going based off the dashboard here, then third round guy, 104 or 105 rather, and that 73.2 would put him in what they call strong candidates for an MLS roster. He's one of 27 there. So it's just 51 guys that either have the same level, same grouping there or above on Kayeli. So again, you see that the 1v1s almost at the very bottom in terms of this year's class. So that's one thing I don't think we should expect out of Patrick Kayeli is any exciting 1v1 duels out there wide.
That's all right, as long as we can do some other things.
Yeah. So anything else for you on this year's draft class?
No, just excited to see him. Hope both of them have a good camp.
Yeah. So let's move into a couple pieces of Austin FC news here. First, Austin FC confirming what we expected after Club President Andy Loughnane's address. We're talking about presidential addresses this week here. Austin FC will indeed participate in the 2026 Leagues Cup. The tournament begins on August 4th, and I believe the final will be in the month of September in the first week or two. But just like you said on our schedule release live stream, man, there's like that 8 or 9 day window for the group stages. So it looks like you're going to slam 3 games against Liga MX's competition into early August. And again, like, I have not changed the fact that I don't like that in terms of our like in league prospects. Cause for me, right, the league is number 1 for me, then US Open Cup, and then Leagues Cup. Like, this is the one that I care about the least. I know you would rather watch the Leagues Cup competition compared to Open Cup. And I definitely agree with your points there, but I value the history of the Open Cup for sure. And after last year, dude, I want to get back there. I want revenge. I want to finish what we started.
I'm with you there, and I think I have the same rankings. I do enjoy watching the Leagues Cup more, but
Yeah.
we talked about at some point earlier this week on
Yeah.
one of the various streams um, about the depth of this team and making sure that we have guys that can compete in external competitions like this one. So I also am not a big fan of that schedule. But if you got enough dudes to go out there and run it, man, let's see what it looks like, And
Yeah.
those Liga MX teams, obviously, I have a ton of respect for them. I just love watching the competition because I love watching those
For
Liga
sure.
MX teams. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I'm with you there. Like that is like I would think we get all 3 games at home. I don't really recall how that worked last year when they went to the different group stage format, right? Which made sure that you played all of your group stage games against teams from the other league, right? Because we shrunk the
Yep.
MLS field size down. So I also don't remember because we weren't in the competition last year. I don't remember when that schedule comes out. But I am looking forward to see, and I would like to see some of those Liga MX sides that we haven't seen yet. I also wouldn't mind bring Mazatlan back. I want some revenge. Juarez, bring him back, right?
Yep.
And if we catch a Rayados or a Pumas, man, there's going to be some fireworks there too. Just because of the 2 upsets that we pulled 2 seasons ago. So the next piece of news this past week was schedule rumor. This is not confirmed by the league yet, but when Bogert and Paul Tenorio report something, it's a pretty good bet that it is coming through. The division realignment proposal under the current proposal that, again, is expected to be announced for 2027 and beyond. Austin FC's new division opponents are indeed Houston Dynamo, FC Dallas, LAFC, LA Galaxy, and San Diego FC. So that means that Austin, in every MLS season from 2027 and beyond, would play those 5 teams twice and every other MLS team once per season. Now, some of the reporting around this that I think was, loosely tied to Austin FC. Tom Bogert did say on Soccer Wise this week that reportedly there was a proposal that had the 3 Texas teams and the 3 Cascadia teams, right, being Vancouver Whitecaps, Seattle Sounders, and Portland Timbers, that was a potential division. And then you would keep the 4 California teams, San Jose getting in with the group of Cali teams that we have, and putting the 2 Rocky Mountain teams in their own kind of Western division there. But all 3 Cascadia teams and all 3 Texas teams said, we don't want to do that. That is incredible travel. And so just a little bit less travel, I guess, to get out there to, Southern California. But I still think we have the toughest draw here in terms of year over year expectations, because there's not going to be that many seasons where LAFC, LA Galaxy, and San Diego only won, 1 year sample size here. But we know the Los Angeles teams are, if they're down 1 year, they're fucking reloading and coming back with a vengeance the next season. So this is tough, man.
Yeah, not super thrilled about this. Going to be honest with you. I would have much rather preferred those Cascadia teams, and I genuinely like those teams more. I hate the fucking LA teams. I hate both of them
I know. Me too.
Passion. Obviously, I hate Houston. Obviously, I hate Dallas as well. But those 2, I mean, outside of the direct rivals here in Texas, I hate LAFC and LA Galaxy. So we'll get our shot at them twice a year now. So we'll see what it looks like. But yeah, this is a tough draw, man. This is a talented division that's going to have a lot of money spent in it.
Yeah. I feel like we could do probably an annual, our own player haters ball here in the North End, right? Yeah. Hate.
That'd be a 2-hour episode.
Yeah. So speaking of schedules here, we have our first preseason dates here. The Coachella Valley Invitational schedule has been released here. So Austin's 3 preseason exhibitions out there in California. First Saturday, February 7th. This will be a 1 p.m. Central kickoff time. Austin FC will take on St. Louis City. Then Wednesday of that week on the 11th at noon Central, taking on Chicago Fire. Maybe they have Robert Lewandowski in tow. We'll see. And then Saturday, Valentine's Day there, Saturday, February 14th at noon, we will take on Sporting KC, which means we will see Stephen Cleveland at Coachella Valley.
Okay.
And man, again, I hope that the team broadcasts all 3 of these, but traditionally we get at least 1 broadcast on the team's YouTube channel. So of course, looking forward to this, and keep in mind that we will have an exhibition schedule in January as well. I don't know why the team would change from, right? We've done 2 or 3 scrimmages out in Florida in January the last couple years. So I'm expecting that to come out in the next couple weeks as well. But again, we're 3 weeks away from training camp, dude. It's right around the corner.
Absolutely insane. That was going to be my takeaway here, is that we are about to be rolling, and once it hits, it starts going fast.
Yep. So anything else for you here on any of those pieces of news?
No, sir.
All righty, we got to close it out here. The goal of the year bracket here in 2025. Drum roll, please.
Holy
it is
Christ.
CJ Fodre. 94.3% of the vote. So with condolences and apologies to Brandon Vasquez. Look, BB, you had 2 goals make it to the Final Four, right? So it's not like the fan base didn't acknowledge the quality of the goals there, but good God, man, this was not close. Dude, that's like single digit number of votes for Brandon Vasquez, like maybe like 5.
That is nuts. And I can't remember all the goals that came out of the Vibes bracket, but I don't know if there's ever been a Vibes goal as nice as this CJ.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if there's ever been a stronger seed coming out of the Vibes bracket, because it had all the vibes.
Yeah.
And like CJ hot streak advancing versus Minnesota, man, like, oh my God.
And so, if whatever your sports book of choice is, if they offer action on the North End goal of the year bracket here annually, I think you want to maybe take the goal that has the highest vibes, because you think about Biru last year, right? It's not a game winner. It did put us ahead in that game, but like it was the vibes of the moment. It was the 3rd goal in 6 or 7 minutes or whatever. Whether you're watching in the stadium, you're watching on the broadcast, those guys are going nuts.
Yep.
Diego Rubio pumping up the crowd. Like that had a lot to do, I think, with Biru taking home the crown last year. You think about Seba Driussi's chip of Roman Berkey on opening night. Like, again, that's a vibes, some skill there. But then Musa Jite in 2022, our first ever goal of the year bracket, which I went back and looked at again, man. Looking at 64 fucking goals on one bracket with the entire 16 Driussi goal region. Like, what a time that was.
Yeah.
But Musa's hat trick goal was very simple. Almost a tap in. But like it was the vibes of the moment. And CJ becomes the first goal scored away from Q2 Stadium to win the prestigious Goal of the Year award here in the North End East. So congrats to CJ on winning the 2025 Goal of the Year here in the North End. Again, that 94.3%. Biru last year, 63.9%. Driussi's chip in 23, 52%. Moose's hat trick goal, 54%. So this is certainly an outlier, and CJ sweeping his way to the crown here. And look, man, well deserved. That was maybe the most important goal in Austin history to date.
Yeah, it was awesome and definitely well deserved. And it was, man, what a time! What a time!
Yep. So we wave goodbye to the Goal of the Year bracket for 2025, and really appreciate everybody who tunes in week and week out and votes and plays along with the silly little off-season exercise, right? Gets us through the doldrums of the off-season, and here we are crowning the champion, coming off one of the busiest weeks in club history. And with that, we expect to fire up another live stream here early in the week, so we will say farewell for now, but anything else for you before we shut it down?
Oh, no, man. Be ready next week. Be ready.
Yep. Well, and look, I'm sure we'll say it if we have that live stream, but Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you're celebrating this time of year. We hope you have a good week. We appreciate you tuning in, sticking with us here on episode 276 of the North End Podcast. We are likely back on the live stream early this week, but of course we will be back next Sunday for our regularly scheduled episode. So enjoy your week, everybody. We'll do the same, and we'll see you back here next Sunday. Until then, he's E, and I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.